Hello, everybody, and welcome to episode 5 of When Girls Talk Books. I'm Kylie.
I'm Susie.
And today we're going to be covering The Devil's Bargain, and this is by Jenna Lombardo. And she is a small author that reached out to us on Instagram to see if we would cover her book, and we said, absolutely, we will. Full disclosure, we did purchase these ourselves, so it's not like we're not biased. Yeah. I did go ahead and ask Jenna for just a little bit about her and kind of why she wanted to write the book, any inspiration behind it, things like that. And this is what she had to say. She said, at the core, the novel is a story of parental love, family dynamics, and how far parents will go or should go to protect their kids. Thankfully, I have never experienced this type of loss felt by James, but as a mother of 2, I often think and worry about all the horror in the world and the best way to shield my girls from it. My oldest daughter is autistic, and she's the love of our life, though there are a lot of struggles that accompany the situation. I know my husband struggled early on after her diagnosis, and this informed some of the broader strokes of James' character. This is seen in how James struggles to cope with Billy's loss and the regrets he has about himself as a parent. The theme of parenthood is seen in how Michael abandoning Liz and Karina destroyed him, how Liz putting Karina up for adoption scarred her, and how Lucifer is ultimately a child who feels abandoned by his father and older brother, and how Azazel will do whatever is necessary to keep his family safe. Even Vincent is motivated by the loss of his sister and becomes a surrogate father figure for Karina. My husband and I were both police officers who transitioned to teaching at different times, and I was able to draw on both our experiences to the job to try and add a level of realism and to certain scenarios based on old cases. I have a lifetime fan of dark fantasy, horror, supernatural, and mythological stories, and this inspired me to tweak and play with some of the mythological Theological, thank you.
You had it.
Tropes. This was a passion project of mine, something I've always wanted to write, despite having no formal writing training and even being able to afford an editor and having no marketing budget. The setting of the book is also very personal to me. I come from an Italian-American household from the New York City metro era, and this experience inspired me to use the city and surrounding areas as a backdrop for each story. Each location is based on a real place, and people who I know in New York City or a long time will be able to recognize or relate to it.
Interesting.
Yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I love how she brought in a lot of her real life stuff into the story, and even like certain cases and things like that. That's really cool. Yeah. So that's a little bit about Jenna. So shall we get started? There was some spoilers in there as far as what the story
I was
actually
trying to,
is.
like, don't make a face.
So with The Devil's Bargain, if you couldn't tell, it has a lot to do with bargaining with the devil or Lucifer. And to me, as some people might say, I struggle with faith. So this was very much a story to me. So I know that there are a lot of annotations to certain things that are in the Bible, and there's a lot of that kind of stuff that goes on, but to me it's just a story.
Yep.
So I really enjoyed it, if we're going to be honest. I was in a really big book rut. What is that? Book hangover, like really bad, because I had read The Women before this. So it took me a little bit to get into it, and then once I was into it, I was into it. And it's so fast-paced. Like,
once it gets going, it's true.
Yeah.
I had not struggled, but getting into it, because being raised a super Christian kid, it was a little bit confusing. Because I'm reading it, not that it was just weird for me, because I'm reading, I'm like, wait, that's not part of this. I'm like, it's a fictional story. That's the point. You can mix it all together. But my brain was like, no, that's not who you are. Like,
yeah. See, I don't have any of that. So I also had to get a little lesson from Susie about what all of this even means. Yeah. So I learned a lot.
We had to bring out the big guns this episode for some explanations.
But I definitely had the fortune of just being able to,
I feel like it would have been easier to read this book like that.
Yeah, because I had no...
Shut that out.
I had none of that. So I was like, okay, yeah, sure, moving forward.
Sounds great.
Yeah. One thing that I really liked about this is I didn't feel like there was any wasted chapters. Like, everything kind of tied together, and it felt like just each chapter you were getting, like, a puzzle piece to, like, fit it all together. So I really enjoyed that, because sometimes with books it can feel like, oh my gosh, I get it, or like, what was even the point of that? Which I didn't feel like this book really
There was no filler chapters.
Yeah, exactly. What was your star rating?
Probably a 4 out of 5, like 3 or a 4 out of 5.
Mine was a 4.
Okay.
I really liked it. Like I said, it took me a little bit to get into it, but I did enjoy it, and
Me too.
Had the privilege of not really knowing any Bible stuff about it, so
I do like that, because this episode, spoilers coming, I did like that I guessed Mickey's character. Like,
I didn't.
So as soon as I read it, I was like, we got an archangel up in here, and I'm like, oh, okay.
Right. So I also rated it 4 stars. And I should share, there is going to be a book 2, and she said that's coming out in December of this year.
Oh, okay.
So, yeah.
Because when I got to the end last night, was not ready for a cliffhanger, and then I was like, there's gotta be more, and there was no release date, so I'm like, how long are we gonna have to wait?
Yeah. So I will be getting book 2.
Nice.
So I enjoyed it enough where I'm going to continue the story, for sure. Our story starts with, there's quite a few characters that have a lot in the book. The first one is going to be James, and he's a detective. And so our story starts with James, and they're in court for a sex trafficking case, and the perpetrator, Hector, ends up getting away with it. And I didn't really understand, there was something to do with the evidence, and it wasn't reported properly.
It came down to like a clerical error about when the report was filed, in the order of how it was filed, and that guy's slimy lawyer did his job, but it's just like
he got away with it. And James felt destroyed essentially by it. The family is like, this is all your fault to him. And he like leaves and he goes to the bar. And we learn a bit about him, and his son, who is autistic, passed away a while ago, I would assume at this point. One thing, maybe I just missed it. Okay. How did the son die?
All that it was said along the book was that he was, like, murdered.
He was, like, taken from him.
Yeah, there was never any...
And the guy was never caught.
That's correct.
Yeah.
Yep, there was never, like, a clear, his son... was
this happened.
Yeah, there was nothing specific that I could remember. If someone else read it, come tell us. Yeah. Correct us in the comments down for it.
Yeah. The son had passed away, and the wife is gone, and he's just like really put himself into his job. He's a broken man for sure. And so after the court, he goes to the bar
to drown his sorrows.
Like you do. And this gentleman comes and sits next to him and essentially offers him a deal of, if you can find me this girl, which he's been looking for as well within his job, her name's Karina, if you can find her, I'll bring your son back. And he's like, oh yeah, man, sure.
I imagined like someone coming up to you and sitting next to you being like, so, if you make me this deal, I can bring back this mystical thing, and be like, excuse you?
First of all, why are you sitting next to me? Yeah. There's a whole bar here. Like, personal space, dude. I don't know you. Mm-hmm. So he offers him a deal of, if you bring Karina to me, I will bring your son back, Billy. And he's like, yeah, sure, dude. And he offers him a drink. So he's very big on, to make deals, he like offers him this special cocktail that he just whips up out of nowhere. And James is like, what does it hurt? Why not? I'll make the deal. And so he drinks, and then he has like this searing pain in his chest, and then he's like, what did you do to me? And he's like, you made a deal.
To the part that made me chuckle while they're doing this deal is when he hands him the drink, and he's like, well, why are you handing me a drink? And Lucifer goes, sorry, I left my fiddle at home.
Yeah, okay. So this is Lucifer, and he is charismatic, which seems to be a trend.
Oh, yeah. Like,
of him always having a charisma.
He's charming. He's the best manipulator.
Yeah.
Yeah,
he's really funny. So he ends up leaving, and essentially James kind of thinks this is fake. And so he's like, he made the deal, but then he's also like, I don't know if this is real. And he leaves, essentially, because Lucifer leaves. So he like heads out. So then we cut to Vincent, who is our second main character, I guess you could say. And he's at a restaurant, and he's also a priest. So he's a priest, he's at a restaurant.
A priest.
Yeah. And he's waiting for an appointment, and he like has this lavish meal, and he's like, who knows, this could be my last meal of my life. I might get murdered. And you're like, what the heck is happening?
My brain was spinning reading this part. I was like, who are you?
Literally. And it ends up being he is purchasing a girl from Hector, who just got off on charges for sex trafficking. And you come to find out that the reason why is because Hector had killed his younger sister when he kidnapped her as well.
Vincent's younger sister.
He's on this revenge thing. So he's
like
a
vigilante mission.
He's a vigilante priest, essentially.
My favorite. Like, let's go.
He's like, well, is it really bad if these people are doing bad things, essentially? It's kind of like his whole motto in life at this point. So they're at the restaurant, and Hector is very antsy. Let's get this done. If you screw me over, I'm going to kill you.
Not blending in. No. Not playing it cool.
And Vincent, to me, was kind of like, in this particular scene, very like suave. Yes, in a way, very collected. And so they go out in the back, and he takes the girl, and then he kills Hector in the alleyway, essentially. And so the girl is freaking out. She doesn't know what is happening, and he's like, you're fine, you're fine. Can you
imagine what, like, because she's taking everything at face value. Trunk opens, priest murders someone. What?
Yeah. In the pouring down rain, because of course. So he kills him, and she's like, and he tells her, like, get in the car, you're fine, you're safe.
Excuse you? No. Huh? I haven't been fine since I was taken, okay?
Literally, this poor girl. So he takes her, and he puts her in her car, and then you also see James in a different scene, because this goes back and forth between James' perspective and Vincent's, like, every other chapter. And so then you see, like, James actually drove by and saw it happen, and then also Satan is there. Lucifer, sorry. I don't know if there's a difference there, but...
That's two different names. Yep.
Okay, so same guy.
Lucifer is Satan.
Okay.
Lucifer was the name he was given by God while he was the favorite angel. So that's why he had a beautiful name. He was adorned and gorgeous. And so then when he was banished to hell, he became Satan. This is all just my understanding. This is not the only way to, like, this is just what I was taught and how it goes.
Right. But he still goes by Lucifer.
Yep.
In this book.
Correct.
Okay. So he's also there, and he walks by, and he's like, oh, see, you finally did what you've been planning on doing, essentially. And he's like, who's this guy? And then they'd leave. And it's very like, okay,
all right.
No repercussions there. So then you cut to James, and Lucifer shows up.
And Lucifer calls him Jimmy, which he
Jimmy,
hates.
yeah.
I picture him showing up and be like,
Jimmy?
Jimmy.
Yeah.
And he's like, don't call me that.
Nobody calls me that.
Okay, Jimbo.
Besides my ex-wife. And he's like, how about a drink? And he's like, I don't want any more of your drink. And he's like, well, too bad. And so he essentially like winnows himself to James's apartment and has a drink. And he is kind of there to make James realize that this is real. Like, he really is Lucifer, and this is real. He can make this happen.
Being the devil, having to prove yourself.
I mean, it seems like he's making deals left and right. Like, even in certain scenes with random people, like, there was clearly a deal made of some sort. And he's a recruiter. Like, the amount of people in this book that he has going for the same thing is kind of insane. Like, it's like, you're helping this guy because I don't believe this guy's actually going to get it done. So then we're going to recruit you. He does a lot of recruiting, and he's good at it, clearly. But he says, if you can sit here and not move for 1 minute or 30 seconds or whatever it is, then I'll bring Billy back no matter what. Even if you can't get me Karina, I will bring him back. And he ends up turning into like this beast, and then there's Billy, like the apparition of him.
This part was
so creepy.
Upsetting.
And like the kid is just being mauled essentially, and he's watching this, and so he does move because He's like, what the heck is happening? And he ends up yelling, Billy, and then it's like broken. And he's like, see, told you, I got some abilities. So it was really just a ploy to get him to believe that this is real. And it's like, okay, got it. I'll do it then. So then we have another main character, main-ish. I would say he's actually more of a sub-character, and that's Lucas.
Yes.
Lucas is Hector's younger brother. And so you really find out, like, the whole point of what they're doing. So they used to do just regular anybody, everybody they would take. And then Lucifer ends up hiring them, essentially, for blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls. And before they do anything, they take them to him first. So he's on the hunt for a blonde-haired, blue-eyed girl. And
James thinks there's a serial killer, like, out hunting down blonde-haired, blue-eyed girls.
Yeah.
Never been more relieved to have brown eyes than reading this book. Like, phew, we're safe.
Good to go.
Yeah.
So Lucas is the younger brother, and he is, like, psychotic. Like, he's got...
Joffrey vibes.
Oh,
Game of Thrones.
Joffrey. Literally. He's, like, psychotic. And he's, like, not really allowed around the girls. Like, he's not allowed to go downstairs. But Hector isn't back yet. And so he's like, screw it. And he goes downstairs. And this is when you start to find out that this is all run by Lucifer, essentially. Mm-hmm. And he ends up beating one of the girls for sticking up to him because she's trying to protect the other girls. And it's really, this whole situation is really horrible. But then Lucifer shows up and is like, hey, can you go track down this priest for me because he's got the girl that I'm looking for? And he's like, who the heck are you? And he's like, I'm your boss. What do you mean?
Who are you? I'm Pam.
Yeah, essentially. Then he's like, yeah, you got it. And he becomes like a servant to Lucifer. Mm-hmm. Like, even at the end, he's like, my lord, da 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 da. Like, he is in.
Sad puppy.
And sure. I think it's because he's always followed his brother, and now his brother's not here.
100% a follower.
That's what I got. Then it cuts to... There's a lot of cuts here. And it all kind of, like, goes together, but it's like... You have to know this to go to this. Yeah. So Vincent ends up telling Karina, that they're going to go get the other girls because she's like, there's more. It's not just me. And he's like, okay, you can trust me. Let's go get them and help them out. And she's like, well, Lucas is there. And he's like, who's Lucas? The younger brother. He's there. But he goes into the building and they go downstairs and all of the girls are dead. In excruciating ways.
White, New and Old Testament fashion.
Yeah. And I wasn't sure if this was Lucas or that Lucifer did this. I wasn't sure.
I honestly think it was
Lucas.
The brothers.
Yeah.
Because I'm sure there was influence, or maybe he was given an idea, but, like, this book does a good job of describing that these guys are the epitome of evil themselves. Yeah. And I'm pretty sure he did it. It
just felt really biblical to me. Oh, which is kind of why I thought maybe it was Lucifer.
I'm sure it was, like, he told them, like, or, like, finished it off. It seemed there was definitely some gross touches because, like, for that perfect of a crucifixion.
Yeah. That's kind of what I was like, is this...
The only way they could have done it any more, like, copy and paste out of the Bible is if they had, like, been upside down.
Okay.
Which is another, as if it wasn't bad enough.
Yeah.
So buckle up with this book. Make sure you got a cozy blanket and a support animal while you're reading it, because
you just kind of read through that stuff a little quick. And then the one girl is actually still alive, but they can't save her, but they did try. And so reasonably so, Karina is a mess, and she's sobbing and she's crying because all of these girls are just gone now. And then she goes upstairs, and Vincent is, like, trying to get the rest of them down or something like that.
Trying to cover them, at least shut their eyes.
Yeah.
Just be respectful.
Be very respectful. And Lucifer shows up, and he essentially offers Vincent to hand the girl over, and he'll bring back his little sister. So he does this deal with a lot of people, it turns out. It's kind of his thing. And he's considering it because, A, he just met Karina, if we're going to be totally honest.
Yep.
And B, he loves his sister. And he always felt guilty that he couldn't save her and he couldn't protect her. And so he's considering it, and then Karina shows up and she's like screaming. And he's like, what
is your deal?
Yeah. And she can see Lucifer for essentially who he really is. And so
Vincent.
it's just, and Vincent, it turns out. And so it's just, I pictured like this mauled creature, really, like an overlay over their face.
Okay.
I don't know.
Yep.
That's what I was picturing. We learned that Lucifer can't just take Karina because she's under the priest's protection.
Yeah.
And so as long as he has faith, essentially, he can't just take her from him. He has to either willingly give her up or somebody else has to take her from him, which is where James and Lucas both come into play.
All his little pack of people come into play here.
Pack of damaged people, yeah. Mm-hmm. Then Vincent is essentially like, no, I'm not going to do it. And she's like, I can't trust you. Like, you almost just did. And Lucifer kind of plays on that, too.
It's the scene from The Office.
Yeah, literally. And she's like, I can't really trust you. Bottom line. But then she does trust him. It's really the only person she can actually trust. And
the lesser of two evils, literally.
Yeah. And when she's with him, she's under protection. So it's like, what is your other option? You going to go out on your own? No.
I do appreciate that, sometimes in movies, the main girl will be given zero survival instincts.
Yeah.
I appreciated that she was so intelligent. I was like, yes, yeah. Okay.
After that, we cut to James. There's a lot of cuts.
Fully invested and ready in this action scene.
To James.
Yep.
And James meets Mickey. Do you want to explain more about this scenario? Because I feel like you'll do a better job at it.
So James goes to a church, and James is trying to, get help because he's just scared, and so he goes to a Catholic church, from my understanding from reading the book. And then this Mickey guy appears. And so...
Who's a priest.
Yep. Yeah. And he's sitting there talking to him, and as I'm reading it, I'm going, I wonder if this is going to be St. Michael. But St. Michael, from my understanding, is a whole nother person, too, in Catholicism. So somebody help me out here. Michael is a real archangel. He was very powerful, but it was a little funky. Yeah. But the gist of it was pretty much there. It was pretty smart. And I felt very smart that I predicted that. And I was like, yeah, I'll bet that's Michael. And he's trying to explain to James what happened with the fall. Mm-hmm. But he's sitting in a Catholic church describing it from a different
point of view.
Yeah. Yeah. And then pulls characters from a separate book that is supposedly written after the Bible that not even the faith that Michael is supposed to be playing agrees upon. So I was so confused, but it's so cool. It was such an interesting way to put it that I was like, oh, why is it
pulls from mythology and stuff too.
Oh yeah. Let's pull a little Greek mythology in here. Let's grab a little Old Testament, little razzle dazzle of some New Testament. My brain was just
all over the place.
Yeah. So then Michael brings up the story about how there is a Nephilim baby.
Well, there's multiples.
Yes.
It seems like any fallen angel, essentially, if they procreate, then there's these half.
Which is a huge debate as well. That is wow. I was even nervous trying to bring it up. Just a general question to my religious family. Hey, what about... Whoa. Okay. Don't worry, Dad's a fictional book. I wasn't... Anyway.
Yeah. Which is...
can you just help me out for the sake of a story? I just need some help. So then that's when James is starting to learn that basically Lucifer and all these people are after these half-mortal children. Yeah. Which is kind of what Hercules was described as, a half-mortal. So I was like, is he coming next?
Yeah. Because they still have abilities, essentially. And so Lucifer is after these half-children to come back to heaven, to blast through heaven, really, is what it is.
In this story, he wants to take over heaven.
He wants to go home, is what it is. Yep. And then he wants to kill his dad. Because he feels very betrayed by Michael and also by God. for banishing him to pits.
Yes, banishing him to hell.
Like I said, I don't know this at all.
And this is 3 stories wrapped into one. Technically, from the way I was raised, Lucifer, Satan doesn't want to go back to heaven. He just wants to be God. That's why he was cast down from heaven. He just wants to be God. So I was like, all right, for the sake of the story, I kind of like where this is going. Like, all right.
Yeah.
But he's so powerful, he wouldn't need this. So that was confusing.
Because it's also...
Shut up.
Susan.
Silence my cell phone.
Please silence your cell phone. It's also talked about how, like, Mickey or Michael is old now because he doesn't... like, the earth is draining his power, essentially.
Just like
the longer he's away...
die because there's sin.
Yeah. And, but Lucifer is still young because the people in the world, like, are worshiping him in a way because he's like, God has failed them and then they turn to me. And so he's really kind of made this whole thing go for him.
Yep.
And
capitalized on this.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly.
I mean,
he's a hustler, okay?
Yeah.
He makes it work for him, and so he's still young because he makes people believe in him. Correct. Is my understanding.
Yep.
So
it's kind of like the Santa Claus sleigh doesn't fly because not enough kids
because there's not a belief.
It.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. So he tells a whole story of that, and he's like, okay, thanks, pal, and leaves.
Oh, and when he gets to the door, the actual priest that's
who are you
at the church.
Who are you talking to?
And he's like, huh?
Oh, Mickey. I thought that was such an interesting name choice. Mickey. Wait, I don't know, but I kind of like it at the same time.
Why not Mike?
That's what I was going to say.
Like,
but I kind of like it. I don't know. A little unserious to it. Just my opinion.
My favorite was when James was like the mouse?
Yeah, like the mouse? Okay, so then as James is leaving the church, he gets a ticket and he's like, I'm going to give this guy a piece of my mind. And Lucifer shows up and he's like, hey,
bruh,
chill.
It's like when I'm about to be unreasonable with someone and you're like, hey,
let's not make any big decisions right now.
Yeah, let's choose kindness. And I'm like, but I want to kill them. And you're like, do you want to go to jail? No.
Let's think about it. In this part, Lucifer essentially calms him down. Remember what you're trying to do. And he also asked James if when he brought Billy back, if he would like him to take away being autistic.
Which, did they ever flat out say
that he was autistic?
Yeah.
I think he did.
Okay, because I couldn't remember either, because as I was reading the book, I was having another one like, am I just so smart? Did I figure it out? Because my notes say, James's son, autistic, question mark?
Yeah, because he's nonverbal.
Sure. That's what kind of made me want, okay.
I love this part. And James says no, because then he wouldn't be Billy. And I was like, oh! Like, as a parent, I can't imagine if anything had happened to Bash. I don't know what I would do. But I couldn't stand him. Okay. I couldn't, like, the self-loathing.
I can't wait to do the fan cast.
I can't protect him. There's, like, I don't know. Like, the blame of it, you know? There's only so much you can do. Okay. Ultimately, he never ended up catching the guy, which I understand was probably pretty hard. But I didn't like James.
Didn't love it.
At the end, still didn't like him. I'm like, serves you right. I'm sorry. I just didn't like him. I didn't really like Vincent either, if we're going to be honest.
God, yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I appreciated him, but yeah.
Then Lucifer lies to James and said that Vincent...
Surprise, surprise.
Vincent is the one that killed your son. So I need you to go kill him. Because at this point, he knows that Vincent isn't going to willingly give up Karina. And he wants Karina. If you haven't caught on to it now, Karina is...
the Nephilim baby.
Nephilim?
Yep.
Okay, the Nephilim baby. But she's a teenager, so not really.
Which is Michael's daughter.
Which is Michael's daughter.
Which is why Mickey was at the church telling James, like, about
the story.
Her, without all the details, because Mickey wants to keep Karina safe.
Yeah.
Even though she doesn't even know about anything.
Yes. Then Lucifer goes to see Azazel, who is his brother, and is, like, really close with him. And he followed him in the rebellion and was downcasted with him. So he goes to see him, and he is at...
What's up, brother?
A campus because he's a teacher now.
Of course.
All right. And this was kind of funny when, like, security is like, what's your name? Da-da-da-da-da. And he's, like, not giving into it. And then he ends up seeing his brother, and he's like, oh, hey. So he's like, yeah, he's going to be a speaker for an assembly. Whatever.
Oopsie, here, let me come fix this because you're making a mess.
Yeah. And so they go to the office, and Lucifer essentially tells him his plan. He's going to use this child to...
I'm going to take over the world, brother. Will you come with me?
That's literally what it was.
And he's like,
sure, bro.
Sure.
We got it pretty good now.
Yeah, well, he has a family, and he has children, and his main driver is keeping his wife and his kids safe. So he says, I will help you with this as long as you can guarantee my wife and kids will be safe. And he's like, you are living a mortal life, and da-da-da-da. Like, definitely doesn't agree with it.
And this part confused me character-wise, because I'm like, so are they, like, if they're really full fallen angels, they wouldn't really have this capacity to feel those things. Like these
But they do, because even they do with each other as well. Like Lucifer and Azazel, I'm going to look at this every single time. They have a relationship of brothers. They're brothers. And kind of Lucifer's whole thing is he's very hurt by Michael and his dad. That's the gist of this whole entire thing is he's very hurt. And
the butthurt little brother that wants to go home.
He does say that at some point. I just want to go home. And
if only he had some ruby slippers.
There's no place I could. I don't think that would work out for him. And so he says, yes, I will help you. And so you kind of get a background story of the brother, and like he used to manipulate people into wars and to do whatever he wanted to do, which is why Lucifer is recruiting him. So he says yes, and then Lucifer leaves, and he essentially like releases like this creepy shadow thing, was my understanding of it. And so you discover that he is a bad guy. Next, Vincent and Karina are headed to Karina's parents' house because she thinks that's where Lucas is headed. So they show up, and Vincent said, let me go in first. And she said, you're out of your mind. My parents are in there. And both her parents are dead. And again, a very mutilated way. Mm-hmm. And she is reasonably so distraught about it. And then of course James shows up, and there's like a shootout, and
because why wouldn't there be?
Karina and Vincent have to get out. They get in the car. They're also shooting at James. Their car gets shot a bit, but they end up getting away. So then we find out that James is actually pretty badly hurt, and he tells Lucas, who shows up, to take him to this place. And so he's like, okay. So then we cut to James' ex-wife, who is a nurse, or was a nurse, or a doctor.
Used to be some sort of in the medical field.
And she really lost her way after Billy died. And she is just a frail person. She's
kind of like
substance abuse issues. Yep. And she is having thoughts of ending her life. And how is she going to do that? Because she wants to be with Billy, but she has to go about it a certain way, or else she's not going to be in heaven with him.
And that, again, only if she was a practicing Catholic.
I don't know.
Because in that faith, if you take your own life, you get stuck in purgatory or can't go to heaven. So
she decides that she's going to go to a cop place and fire around in the air. And then
suicide by police officers.
Yeah, they would take her out. But before she does that, she's like across the street, and then James shows up, and he's like, what the heck are you doing?
They kind of get in a wrestling match over it.
And she says, mind your own business. And he like hugs her, and she realizes that he's bleeding, like she's covered in blood from him.
Yep.
So she takes him back to her house. She stitches him up, says, you're going to be okay. It went right through.
The funny part about that part when she takes him back to her house and her one night stand is still there.
He's just hanging out. He's like, where'd you go?
Can you imagine just like chilling, your Tinder date left, and then comes in with someone like half dead on the table?
Your ex-husband?
And he doesn't even know that that's her ex. I'm like, what?
Yeah. And he's like, once he comes to, he's like, hey, you need to go. But those are actually my clothes. I need you to get out of them.
That they make him take the sweats off.
Yeah, that was pretty funny. And then there's like this lingering feelings, but like they're unsure if they should have feelings for each other anymore. It's like a weird, unknown spot, essentially.
Correct.
And then the door rings, and it's Mickey. And she says, oh my gosh, you've aged. You told me that would happen.
Ex-husband shows up. You're trying to have your fling. And your ex-ex shows up as well.
And
all at your house.
Mickey is kind of the love of her life. Like she describes it as a very passionate relationship. And so you find out that Liz is actually the mother of Karina, who is the baby of Michael. So Mickey, Michael, and Liz
half angel, half
had a baby. And it was Karina, and then they had to give her up for adoption, and he has stayed away from her because he didn't want Lucifer to find her, nor Liz to figure out where she went. So he's essentially like cut off everything, and he's felt like a lot of guilt, but he needed to stay away, but he wanted to make sure that Liz was okay. So you have that moment, and then he leaves, essentially.
Again.
Yeah, there's not really much to it. He just wanted to make sure that she was okay.
He just kind of does that a lot. Just kind of
pops
ears, bye.
Yeah. But he wanted to make sure she was okay, and then he leaves, and then the ex-husband's still there, and she's like, what is happening? Can you imagine? Just a mess of a day. She's like, okay. And so,
I knew I shouldn't have even woken up today.
yeah. And he also tells her that James thinks he knows who killed Billy, but it's not true.
And he's going about it like adrenaline rush. That picture of the guy pointing and all, yep. You have to see it. And so, like, I can definitely see from Liz's perspective, be like, bruv,
relax.
Yeah, like, have you slept? And he's like, you're not listening.
Yeah, and he's also drinking, and so she decided all of a sudden that she wasn't going to drink, but she's like, sobriety starts tomorrow. All right.
Yeah, that was, all right.
Yeah. So, we cut to the casino where Lucifer is at, and Michael shows up and essentially asks him to not do it. Please don't do this. Leave my daughter alone. They get into this mega fight and go through a portal in the casino to this, what I pictured like a dog track. Yeah. I don't know if that's accurate. But there's still like this opening where people are watching them. These two angels at this point, because they have their wings out and stuff.
And angels are horrifying creatures. Like, as they are written and described, you would be shitting yourself.
Well, I thought Lucifer was attractive, so I'm not assuming that it's biblically
like
correct.
Michael and Archangel, they are horrifying, and they're huge. Yeah. And, like, the people would be having a hard time seeing them, too, because good or bad, their incredibly strong energy makes it so humans literally can't face them. Like, we fall down. Like,
I don't think it's biblically accurate.
Yeah, but like, no.
I'm just picturing men wings.
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And like a tail.
Maybe.
Yeah.
No. I'm actually not picturing that. But so they get into a fight.
Picture like the what's the popular movie? Captain America, like when they're all destroying the city, that's kind of what's happening.
Literally. And they're just, people are just watching through this portal that they've created. Everybody in society. Just gotta get this on my Snap story, actually. And then Michael is older and frail, and Lucifer is the obvious superior being in this. So he ends up kicking his hiney and is like, I felt so bad for him too. For Lucifer?
For Michael. Like when he just got ripped to wow. And
he like puts his hands up and he asks for help. And so he's like, if I am truly the favorite or something like that.
He prays to their father.
Then he'll heal me or restore me or whatever it may be. And then we have a cut.
Yep. And then Goodbye.
So then we cut to Vincent and Karina, and they're on the road.
On the road again.
They're on the road, and he's like, we need to stop for the night because this is a film.
Yeah,
And
let's find a Motel 6.
Yeah.
They'll leave the light on for us.
But they end up finding an abandoned building.
Best we can do is an old warehouse.
Yeah. An abandoned building that is tall.
I was picturing like Marine Drive.
Yeah. Well, it has like office buildings, and so he's like, we can find an office to sleep in for the night. This is like, what is the...
Borrowing the brain cell again.
With Pedro Pascal. It just came out. Not so long ago. Connor, help me.
Not helpful.
The Last of Us, yeah. It's like The Last of Us where they go to the building. Anyway. You didn't even watch it, so I don't know why I wasted my time. Anyway, so they go into a building that you have no idea what I'm talking about.
I'll just pretend it's an old Costco.
Thank you. But it's like multiple stories.
Big.
It's still an office building.
Oh, okay.
So, why am I wasting so much time on a freaking building description?
Hey, I was going off about the biblical accuracy of an angel, so you're good.
That at least pertains to the story. This literally has nothing to do with anything. Anyway, moving on. Just so you really get the picture of what I'm picturing here.
Back in the boat.
Building. And they go in, they find an office, and they're going to sleep in there. And then it ends up being there's these other people in the building. They're trying to assault Karina, and they knocked Vincent out, but then Vincent comes to, and they end up fighting. It's a big back and forth.
This would be the scene in the movie where my mom always goes, oh my God, how long are they going to fight for? There's no way someone can break your shoulder that many times. Like, it's always over. I'm like, Mom, it's just funny, okay?
It's a movie.
Yeah.
One of the guys takes Karina through a window. She falls, and then Vincent also ends up falling down.
Vincent grabs the other guys. They both go flying.
Everybody's out the window onto the floor.
Yep.
So they hit the pavement. Karina hit her head. Vincent ended up on top of the guy. So he's hurt, but definitely not dead like he thinks Karina is. And then Karina just comes back to life. She just starts healing up. And he's like,
that would be so horrifying to watch, too.
I just picture like Twilight, where she's like becoming a vampire, and you get the scene of her ribcage coming back up. Like that's what I'm picturing.
Yep. We already passed this part, but I couldn't help myself. One of my favorite quotes from Lucifer in this book is when he goes, "You know who I am, Jimmy. Say it." And I was like, "This is the skin of a killer, Bella." Yeah. As if you could outrun me.
Literally.
Okay. Anyway. So Karina is coming back.
She comes back. And she heals Vincent, and then she goes back into the building where there's one guy left. She, like, gouges his eyes out and then brings his sight back, and then he immediately is, like, looking at her sexually, and she's like, are you joking me right now? So she... Like, she becomes possessed in a way, is kind of how it's described, and she kills him after that, which she kind of, like... I don't know if she does this to him, but she kind of like incinerates people.
Yeah, she kind of like, she tries to incinerate their soul too. Like she wants to evaporate their soul.
Yeah. So she's very powerful, and then Vincent discovers, oh, cool, you got like stuff, you know? And she then collapses and she's sobbing because she feels so guilty, and he's like, they deserved it, you know, for what they tried to do to you, they deserved it. Then we cut back to Michael, and I kind of enjoyed this part. So he does get zapped back up to old Daddy Heaven, but he's not there, and he's like, where's my dad? And it's this other guy, who is Kronos? Saturn.
Yeah, I was so confused by this point. When Kronos comes into the picture, I was like, who next? Hercules gonna come skipping down? No.
Oh, okay.
Total. This is straight out of Greek mythology.
Okay.
Like,
yeah, but I kind of liked it though, like the tie-in with the universe. I don't know.
God and Zeus are one, and I'm like, well, I mean, in a way, but no.
So,
okay.
Okay. This is my take. This might be controversial, but I don't really care.
Ready.
Because I'm really open-minded.
Yep.
So all religions are different. So I did like how this kind of talked about that. Like, you may know him as God, some people may know him as Zeus, or you may know me as Kronos, but some people refer to me as Saturn or whatever. Yep. So I did kind of like that. It touched on like all religions are kind of different and they all have different names for things.
And they're similarities.
But they could be the same thing, True. Because, I don't know, people go into, well, my religion is the only one that's right and there can't be any other stances on it. And it's like, okay, but if you actually had a conversation, like, these people are the same.
And can you imagine how you would feel if someone sat down and tried to say that about your faith?
Literally. I'm big on let people do what they want to believe in, and that's fine. But, so I did kind of like this, even though it maybe didn't feel appropriate to somebody who grew up with faith.
It mostly, any sense of frustration that the viewers are getting from me is mostly confusion. Because, like, my brain was just so confused. I'm like, wait. Okay, hang on. No, I can enjoy this, but hang on. I got to unpack this and put this back on the shelf and then get in here.
I definitely had the advantage of not really knowing the story.
What I would have given to have a blank slate brain to read this.
So I kind of enjoyed this whole...
It was really fascinating to me.
And then you find out that he is God's dad, essentially. Yep. He created God. And so then Michael has this moment of, my father is not the only one. He is not the first one, and he's not the last one. Like, he's essentially been lied to about who his dad was. Yeah. So I kind of, drama. I kind of liked it.
Oh, girl.
But he restores Michael to what he once was. So I picture him as younger. More. I didn't fan cast him as younger. Let's just put that out there. I only did older because that's what I still pictured. So he restores him to essentially convince his brother not to do this, not to destroy heaven.
Can you, like, not ruin the heavens and the earths and
that'd be great.
The space and the everything?
Yeah. And he says, you got it. And then there's like this big explosion or something, and he's like, you have to go. And he's like, okay. And so he goes back down. So... I'm only going to touch on this very briefly because I really didn't enjoy this whole scene. There's a scene of Lucas and he goes to a strip club.
Full transparency, I had to keep going.
Yeah.
I had to take a break and then I had to keep going.
You really find out just how sick he actually is. And so, long story short, he pays for backroom service and he ends up not only killing her, but then also the bouncer who comes in to check on her. Lucifer shows up and says, you're perfect, you don't need to change anything about who you are, and let's go. Because normal response to somebody who just murdered 2 people.
Right, he's like, my little puppy, what a good job. Yeah. Come on, kid.
So that happens, but we're not going to really go into huge detail about it because I really didn't like it.
We get it.
Yeah. So we go back to the abandoned warehouse that I talked about for a half an hour.
Back to the glowing girl. I pictured her like being almost made out of fire at this point, but like a blue fire.
Go ahead, so Susie. Get your supernatural reference out.
I was gonna make it through the whole episode without one. I didn't even write one down.
I know it's coming. The scene where she's on the ceiling and it's just like fire. But so we're back at the abandoned warehouse and Azazel shows up and essentially tells Karina. So then he just switches sides because he doesn't think that Lucifer
switching sides
will actually protect him or his family. So he shows up and he tells Karina, you need to die. You need to die before he gets a hold of you, essentially, because once you die, your power diminishes and he can't use it. And they go on a magic carpet ride and he shows her what is going to happen if he gets a hold of her, and then they zoom back in like a That's So like Raven that. Reference.
I was picturing That's So Raven and you said it.
And she's like, you're right. Vincent, you have to kill me. And he's like, because again, nobody can touch her or no archangel can get her because she's under the protection of the priest. So she's like, you have to kill me. And he's like, I can't do it. And she's like, no, really, you do. You have to kill me. And then he goes to shoot her. But then, of course, James shows up. And all while this is happening, Michael and Lucifer actually fighting in the yard. So.
Oh, yeah. And also, Michael's like, Haley's Comet coming down while Lucifer's just big chilling in the parking lot like, ah, shit.
Yeah.
I did like that moment for James and Lucifer getting to level with each other a little bit while the Haley's Comet's coming. Because he was like, look, bro, are you even going to, like, honor the deal? And Lucifer's like, I mean, I want to, but, like, I am the devil, so...
Yeah. He's big on,
I'll do what I can.
I fulfill them when I can, essentially. Which is like...
That's like the manager's going, well, based on the needs of the business.
Yeah, because it's not like he can just bring Billy back. It is, he has to complete this in order to bring him back.
Which, isn't it convenient that he left that detail out for James? Like, poor James.
And it's also not just he has to get Karina now. It's they have to kill her, and they have to, then Lucifer has to absorb the power in order to do this. Like it's turned into a whole thing. Yeah. But, so James shows up, and he points his gun at Vincent, is like, drop the gun, and he's like, I have to do this.
You drop the gun. No, you drop the gun. Yeah. Freeze, I'm a cop. No, I don't care.
I gotta do it, man. And James ends up shooting Vincent. Vincent dies, like, no coming back from him.
Yep.
And
well, I mean, he could have, if it wasn't for forking Karina. Karina wasted her energy.
Yeah. Yeah.
When she could have.
She thought she was going to be able to heal him, and
I was
she
a little bit like, haha, bitch, when she was crying because she couldn't save him. Like, if only you had gotten control of yourself.
That's only because you like James. So,
True.
Me, I'm like,
yeah, die, motherfucker, die! You get what you get!
So she ends up pushing him against this door. He can't get out the door, which then we learn that Lucas is actually holding the door shut.
I was so pissed when I found out. I mean, look, I'm just spitting. I'm so angry. You're like,
karma.
Yeah.
And then she incinerates him. She just is like so hot. She just like melts him into ash, essentially. And then she goes back, she tries to revive Vincent, and she can't. And so then she
used up all her powers.
Yeah. She's all sad. And then we cut to outside, and it's Lucifer and Michael, and they're fighting, and Michael ends up kind of like bowing down to Lucifer in a way, and it's like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for what I did. And this kind of goes into what Jenna was talking about of like, Lucifer is just very hurt by Michael and very hurt by his dad. And he has a moment of like, I just want to come home. Mm-hmm. Like, that's all I want. So this kind of gave him a little bit of humanity to him.
Where Michael has to be like, hey, Lucifer, like, I know you want to, like, go get back at Dad, but, like, Dad's MIA. And Lucifer
he's not up there.
Excuse me? I've been going through all this work to bust through the gates, and I could have just fucking walked up.
And he's not even there.
Yeah. Oh, would be. I pictured Jennifer. What do you mean?
Yeah.
What do you mean?
And he essentially says, I'll try to do everything that I can to let you be allowed back in.
I'll talk to Dad.
I'll talk to Dad, who's not there.
Yeah.
And then you get a light, and it's Kronos, and he just, like, severs Lucifer's head, I suppose.
They killed the devil? What the fuck?
Well, he's like, you thought you're not coming back.
And I was a little bit like, I was so like, okay, just get on board. It's just a book. Just get on board. But I was
it's just a book.
What? What is the point?
Again, I had the advantage. So I was like, dang, that sucks. Lucifer was finally like, I don't know, coming
and also
around.
I was like, who the fuck's gonna run hell? You took the manager away. What now?
Well, does the manager ever actually run anything?
No, they don't. They don't do anything
a manager.
She's a good manager.
Just kidding. So Lucifer is just dead. And then they come down. Michael ends up killing Lucas, even though he said that he wasn't going to.
Oh, yeah.
He was then
Kronos tells him to.
Yeah, because he tells Kronos, like, I'll follow you now. And he's like, you're a snake. I will
be your follower. Yeah, he's like, you couldn't even follow the last guy you were going to follow. And don't think I didn't see what you were doing behind the door.
Literally. So he kills him. And then Kronos says, get your butt to your room.
I'll meet you in 10.
Yeah. And he's like, I got to take Karina home. And so he takes Karina to Liz, who's just overjoyed that this baby she had to give up when it was born is back, which I'm like, you have an addiction problem, but okay, we're just going to leave this kid with her. Sure.
Like, sure. As if she hasn't already been through enough.
Yeah. And then Azazel is there as well, in case she needs anything in the future, she can reach out to him, because
he's like, give me a call.
Karina does have abilities. So.
And Liz is like, excuse me?
Yeah.
Sorry?
And then he just dips out. He's like,
That's what he does.
Yeah.
Kind of emotionally unavailable.
A little bit. Well, he did protect her, but not the best father figure. And then we cut to James. You want to talk about your boy?
I was so confused when he wakes up in hell and he's like running from the demon spiders. What?
Some sort of being.
So weird.
But then he goes, I'm not afraid of you.
Cue to Home Alone. I'm not afraid anymore.
Literally.
So then Samael and Lilith.
Yep. Who are just like the board of directors for hell, apparently.
Yeah, yep. They come on down and they're like, why are you being mean to our kids? And he's like, huh? Excuse me? You're varmints? Like,
yeah. She's like, I birthed each and every one of those. Be careful.
Like, it's just like that one mom on the baseball field that's just screaming. So then James finds out that he had been surviving in hell better than he should have. Turns out James has got powers.
Lilith goes, he's the one.
Yeah.
They're afraid of him.
Yeah, like,
okay.
Sorry. So, Samael and Lilith apparently are together, which I had to go down the TikTok rabbit hole to learn a lot about that. I don't know who that is. So, he is another... There was so many ways to go about it. So, like, I'm not an expert. But he was
You're an expert in my eyes.
He was sort of an angel. He's sort of a demon. He was a master manipulator. He did a lot of work, not for Lucifer, but like a lot of along those lines. Lilith is a demonic presence, as far as my understanding is. Like, she is the epitome of like lust. She's like and manipulation and all that.
I know that much.
And they are together, like in the other religions and worlds.
Whatever.
They're together. They are very powerful. They do help run hell, which I thought was fascinating to learn.
The council.
Yep.
The Volturi.
Oh my god, it's true. Does that mean she has the red eyes?
Yeah.
She's the one.
Jane and Arlo. Anyway.
They essentially tell James that like he's special after all, but there's not a lot of explanation.
But he's not gonna rule. What is his name? Samael, whatever. He says, well, I guess I'll be Satan now. And it's like, all right, fam. And, but James is like piecing together, like, well, God was obviously afraid of somebody. He's not creating children. He's creating an army.
Yes, and he points out the little mural things the hologlyphics or whatever that's written across the ceilings, and he's like, if you guys were never meant to hurt each other, why are there weapons? Do you have swords? Yeah. And like, why do you have this ability? So he's like using his detective skills to kind of like show the cracks in the story, and it was working. Yeah, I mean,
it was essentially God created an army of his children to protect him from something. So what was it? And also Lucifer knew who Kronos was, because before he died, he said Kronos. And so he knew who that was, even though Michael had world shattered when that guy was like, oh, I'm grandpa. So he's like, you need to arm all of your people here, and we're going to find out what he was so afraid of that he created this army. And it cuts. That's the end of the book.
Yep.
Which
I was not. This is the first time a character I've thoroughly enjoyed in a book gets murdered. This was the first time I've read a book that's a cliffhanger without the actual sequel readily available. Because Kylie is
December 2024.
Any time she sets me up on a series, she's a kind big sister book reader, and she'll be like, "I'll make sure you can get that sequel so you can have it." This time I was like, "What?
What the?" Throws it.
Yeah, especially because as I was reading the end of this the other night, and I'm like, Lilith! And my fiance undoes his headset like, huh? And I was like, don't worry about it. I was like, who's next? Hercules?
You're really waiting for him to show up.
It just seemed so much they were cut and pasting his story a few times. Or I was like, who's next? Hecate?
Sure. Sure,
Which
yeah.
would be fun. I honestly hope in the next book that would be.
Not a clue who that is.
We'll go down TikTok rabbit hole later tonight. It's fine.
So that's the end of the book until the second one comes out, which I will be purchasing. Because I liked it. Again,
So essentially
I had the advantage of not knowing anything, so I could just enjoy it.
The second book, what I'm hoping, is what I'm to see is there's literally going to be, like, a battle of the Titans.
Yeah.
That's going to be so cool.
It's going to be like fantasy now,
Yeah.
which, depending on...
Yes, please.
Yeah. But yeah, I liked it. I liked the cliffhanger. I was like, okay, this is really fascinating. Like, what is this all going to go into? Is it going to be now religion versus mythology and like that whole thing? I think that would be really cool.
Yep.
So if you can just like set aside things, I think it's really enjoyable.
Yes, if I could have removed the religious stick from thine ass a little faster, I probably would have enjoyed it.
Yeah, probably. Well, you still enjoyed it.
I did.
Which
Yep.
also I felt like, for me, like I had to be asking you things.
Yeah, you're
of
like, wait, who?
What does
Why?
this even mean? Like,
Yeah.
why is this happening? What do you mean he rebelled? Rebelled against what?
Yeah, you're like, wait, he was special? And I'm like,
Yeah.
oh, yes, actually.
Yeah. So I think it also helped you in a way where I had to use you as my resource to figure things out.
I felt honored that, like, I got to, like, tell her something. I always feel like she's my mom friend. I'll be like, I don't know how to do anything. Can you help me? Time for fan cast. Fan cast is if Kylie and I were to make a movie out of these books that we read, who would we assign the characters to?
Yeah.
And so it gets pretty fun too, especially because our personalities can be very different. So
I mean, clearly, one liked James, one did not
the
at
other
all.
one was like, is he gonna die yet? So for my fan cast for James, Ben Affleck.
Me too! Yes!
It was perfect!
Me too!
It was
That's
perfect!
crazy.
Like, no one plays a disgruntled, passive-aggressive douchebag
Oh
better.
my god, he's smoking all the time. You know it. Yep. Ben Affleck.
Everywhere.
For sure.
Michael, I don't know the actor's name, Carlisle from Twilight. Whoever that actor is,
Yep.
that's
Got
Mickey Michael. Liz, Cameron Diaz.
I didn't cast Liz, but
I
that's
almost
fair.
forgot.
Yeah.
Karina, Lauren German. I think I watched her on the Netflix show Lucifer.
Oh, okay.
For Lucifer, I put Tom Ellis, who plays the devil in that Netflix show too.
Okay.
It's perfect. And then Azazel, I don't know how to say his name. It's the actor from 365 Days.
Yep. Michael.
Oh, it is Michael. Okay, I was
pretty
like, Michelle? Marone?
Yep.
Okay, that's who I had for Azazel.
Okay. I didn't cast some of those people,
That's
but
okay.
I'll go to my list.
I forgot
James-
Billy.
Didn't cast that.
Okay, that's all right.
James, I also did Ben Affleck. Vincent, I did Theo James.
Oh, I forgot Vincent. Okay.
Because he has a military background. So I was like, I can't. He has a military background. He's a little bit older, but he's kind of, got this whole thing going for him. So I did Theo James.
Okay.
Karina, I did Ellie Fanny.
Good choice.
Mikey, I did Carl from Up. Hear me out. I never pictured him young. That was okay.
A war-causing archangel.
Keep an open mind. Keep an open mind. You're gonna look at me and tell me I'm wrong.
Nope.
Thank you. He's got his sweaters on. He is the principal of a school.
I mean...
He's just living his life.
Yeah,
Okay? Okay. And then for Lucifer, I gotta pull this up. I did Ian Somerhalder, but specifically Damon Salvatore from Vampire Diaries.
Yeah.
And it's a very specific clip of him when he walks into a funeral service.
I think I know which one you're talking
Probably, because it's golden. This one.
Yep.
Yep. And he walks in. Like, you're gonna tell me that ain't him?
Yep.
That's him. Yeah, that's good.
I like how we both just get lost. So
Let me just finish this really quick.
Oh, sorry.
Me definitely was a Stefan girl when I first watched that. But that was who Lucifer was for me. Okay. So I didn't do Liz or Billy, but
that's all right.
Or the other guy.
At least for once, I casted a main female character as blonde.
Yeah,
you're rubbing off
even
on
though
me.
She has brunette hair. Yeah.
Yep.
Alrighty. Well, that's all I have. Do you have any final thoughts?
No, other than just really curious what the next book is.
Yeah, waiting for book 2, Jenna.
Yeah.
Well, we appreciate you reaching out. We enjoyed it. I enjoyed it.
Yep. I would recommend it to someone.
I would recommend it if they can keep an open mind. If there is somebody who's like very strong in faith, I probably wouldn't, but it all depends on what everybody's different. Mm-hmm. So, yeah, I liked it.
And I had never read a fictional story that even had like a detective or police anything. Like usually I would look at that kind of book and like, boring. But this really good.
Okay, full disclosure, that is one of like my hard no's. A detective book I usually can't stand because it seems like it's the same story every single time, and I just don't care normally. This, I enjoyed. So
that was cool to get to open our eyes
props.
to a new genre. Kind of
thing. Well, detective books are just not my thing usually. So even though I really still didn't like James, but it had so much other stuff going on.
The book itself, yeah.
Awesome. That's it for episode 5, I think.
Thanks, guys, for watching.
Yeah,
like, subscribe, follow, all that fun stuff.
All the things, right? If you're on audio. If you are on audio, we are also on YouTube. So When Girls Talk Books does have a YouTube channel. We do record. So if you want to see all of our very fabulous facial expressions.
Some of mine, I mean, tooting my own horn here. Beep, beep.
Susie crying in tears.
You get to see the tears.
Feel free to hop over there and join us on there. But
we'd love to see you.
If you listen to this on your commute, we still appreciate you. Also, I did want to point out, on audio, I can see where people are listening from, and we have German listeners who consistently listen to our episodes,
Aww.
which is fun. We're really all over the U.S., but Germany is one of those where I can see the same people every episode listening. So I see you. I
need to learn how to say thank you in German.
Is that a VPN? I don't know, but
either way, we'll take it. We've gone international.
Yeah.
Time to go quit our jobs.
Yeah, done. So anyway, thank you for listening. We appreciate you, and stay tuned for much more to come. Again, if you have any recommendations, feel free to always leave them in the comments, or if you have any thoughts or anything, let us know. Yep. I'll comment back.
Yep, she will.
Okay.
Bye. Bye.